In this section, we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges of building a mobile application. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the technical challenges and about the marketing challenges. All right, so as we discussed in the last chapter, you need to figure out exactly what you want to build and what it will offer your users. All right, so you want to focus on that one area and don't waste your time reading articles and information that are geared towards how to build and market games if you're building a business app. Okay, so you want to zone in on that one area and its market. So you also want to figure out what functions this app will serve. All right, so know exactly what it'll do and what it'll be capable of. All right, and one of the biggest challenges is coming up with a concept that no one else has done. Okay, so all of the most common ideas have pretty much already been done. So you need to kind of think outside the box and do some serious brainstorming. So you also need to, if you're not the only developer, you need to find the right developer or developers. All right, so make sure that you do your research and make sure your developers are experts in whatever technology you're using. All right, so if you're building a hybrid app or a web app, then your developer should be a web programmer. All right, if you're building an Android app, then your developer should be highly skilled in Java. Okay, so make sure that their skills match up to what you're doing. All right, so you want to go through your potentials in depth by viewing their portfolio extensively and reading reviews from past clients. All right, so there's a lot of ways that you can find developers. You can have them apply in your community locally, or you can hire them on the web. You can look for a company. You can use freelancer type websites, but if you do that, be really careful because there's a lot of developers that just want work and they'll pretty much say they can do whatever just to actually get the job, and then the time comes and they really don't know what they're doing. All right, and I speak from experience with this. So just make sure that you do your research, find out what other clients are saying about them. All right, so getting your app funded, okay, that can be a huge challenge, and there's a few different ways to approach this. If you have the money yourself, of course, that's the best option because you don't have to deal with anybody else or any other companies or banks. But if you don't, some people will get money from their friends or family. They'll have them invest, but that's not always the best idea because if something goes wrong or you don't make any money, then that can result in broken relationships with your friends and family, and you don't really want that. All right, so let's see. A bank loan may not be a bad idea. Just make sure that you come up with a really great business plan and work out all the details before you go and apply for the loan. All right, private investors, also another popular way to get funded for your app. For this, you definitely want to be even more prepared because they're going to want to ask all the questions that can be asked, and you want to be able to answer them, and you want to be able to explain where every single dollar they're going to give you is going to go. All right, and then you have crowdfunding. You can use services like Kickstarter and AppBacker, which can also be a really good option. Okay, so some of the technical challenges: screen size, obviously one of them. Screen real estate, it's always an issue when you're working with mobile apps or mobile websites. All right, so some of the solutions that you can use are responsive design. This means that you want to tailor your app to respond to multiple screen sizes. All right, this is especially true if you're building a web app that can be viewed on laptops and desktops. All right, so users are viewing your app on a smartphone or a 24-inch desktop. You want to be able to make that app look good on all of those different screens. All right, keep it simple. All right, so you want to just basically have your most important content. You don't want to flood little spaces with tons of text because that can just confuse and aggravate people, and they're just going to go somewhere else. Tables, all right, especially if you're, again, building a web app with HTML and CSS, you want to kind of stay away from tables. A lot of the mobile browsers aren't very table friendly. Okay, next you want to be able to test, and you want to test on as many different devices as you can, as many physical devices as well as emulators. Okay, so you can basically get an emulator for any kind of device. They're available, they're free, and you want to do as much testing as you can. Make sure it looks good on the smallest of the small smartphones as well as desktops or big tablets. Okay, so easy to read fonts and elements. You don't want to use a tiny font that's going to make people squint their eyes. Make sure that everything's readable and just simple and clear. So interactivity, you want to make your app as interactive as possible. You want to make use of the plethora of sensors that are available. You don't need to be restricted to taps. Okay, you want to use things like sliding, tilting the phone, shaking it, flipping it over. There's a lot of different types of movements and sensors that are available to you. And ultimately, it just makes the app more fun to use. All right, so battery life. With any smartphone or tablet, you're going to have the issue of the battery and losing power. And the way it goes is the more that your app performs, okay, the better performance, especially with games and graphical type of applications, the more your power is going to suffer. So you need to find that middle ground, that mix of good performance and good efficiency on your battery. All right, and also run test cases. Like I said, you want to test it on multiple devices. I don't know if emulators are really going to help you in this area, so you want to test on as many physical devices that you can so you can test the battery life. But that's always going to be one of the challenges. All right, so moving on to marketing challenges. One of the biggest ones is just understanding marketing, because a lot of us are just developers and programmers. We understand code as much as anyone, but we don't really have the marketing and sales skills. All right, so you want to definitely do your homework. And it might not be a bad idea to have someone on your team that does know a lot about marketing and retail and all that. But just because you have someone that does that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your own homework and try to learn skills to sell your application on your own. All right, now marketing, not in every case, but in a lot of the cases, it can be 90% marketing, 10% development. All right, so again, you want to make sure that you know at least the basics and you have some good strategies to market your app. There's plenty of resources and plenty of tools out there, some of which I'll go over that can help you. All right, so you also want to understand your target audience, and I'm going to go over this in the next slide, but this is the same for any kind of business, not just app development. You always want to know who's likely to buy your product. Data analytics, we'll also go over that. You want to be able to compare certain sets of data, all right, so reviews, application features, whatever it may be, target audience, consumers. You want to be able to compare data and just have that in your knowledge so that you can use it to your advantage. So understanding your target audience. All right, so as I said, this isn't just with mobile app development, it's with all business models. All right, so you want to find out who's going to be the most interested in your app. Okay, so the audience for a business and production application is going to be much different than the audience for, let's say, a children's game. Basically, your time is your money, and focusing on the wrong set of people, of users, is just a giant waste of time. All right, so you want to plan around their preferences. So your audience, what are they spending money on, how often, and you want to really integrate this kind of data with your development, your app development. All right, so all of that's great. We know now that you have to find your target audience, but how do you do that? All right, so there's many methods. This is just some of them, but market research is obviously one of them, and this is probably the easiest because if you have an internet connection, then you have millions of resources at your fingertips. All right, so it's just about taking the time to sit down, find that data, find credible websites and credible articles that can really help you in your business, in your app. All right, demographic data will help in a lot of ways. There's also a ton of resources online for demographic data, such as census.gov for just generalized demographics. And then there's many different services, products that are geared toward mobile development, and audience intelligence is one of those. So I have the link here if you want to check that out. Some other methods are small subgroups of consumers, personas, which are basically architectures of real people who buy or might buy a certain product. And they're basically fictional profiles, and they can give you a ton of insight on who your real audience is. And a fantastic guide to read is the Buyer Persona Manifesto, which I have a link to the PDF, and can be very helpful. Surveys is a great tool. If you have a website, you can post some really easy to answer surveys, or even pass them out in your community and have people do it, not just online, but in real life. Focus groups is another one, although might be a little tougher to organize, and you may have to spend some money, but it will be well worth it just to get that data and that knowledge. All right, so marketing tools, there is thousands and thousands of tools that you can use. These are just a few that are geared towards mobile app development. All right, so Aptamin is used to make really high quality promotional videos. So you could use these as YouTube ads. You could use these on your App Store and your Google Play pages. AppSend is used for data tracking and push notifications. Tune is a mobile marketing console, and this goes back to analytics, where you can compare sets of data and just gain knowledge that can really help you have a successful app. Smore is a service that offers an easy way to make newsletters. Okay, newsletters have always been a really good marketing tool for any kind of business, so definitely something to look into. All right, so I want to end with a few common mistakes that are made specifically in mobile app development. All right, so one, many developers will just kind of mimic their website onto a smaller screen, and they'll call it an app. And you don't want to do this. You want to think mobile first. All right, it's an entirely separate thing from your website or your desktop, your web app. All right. Less can definitely be more. Okay, you just want to put it in a way that makes sense and that can lead to more content if the user needs it. All right, so maybe you could have it lead to I don't know if you'd want to have it lead to your website, but you may have like a slider widget that they can click and open to read more, but the initial experience should be simple and clear. All right. So the next mistake is not thinking about monetization. All right, so you want to outline a specific way to make money. Okay, if your app does become successful and you're going to have all these users with all this potential to make a lot of money, but no method to make it. All right, so you want to be very clear and know what you're going to do for that. All right. Now, of course, you can sell your app, but most of the profits that are made in mobile development are for free apps. All right, they just use advertising and other methods to make money. So selling your app isn't the only way or even the best way to make money from mobile app development. All right, so just make sure you do a lot of thinking about how you're going to actually get paid for this. And then the last mistake we have is not being original. All right, and this is true with all business. You don't want to copy somebody. You don't want to provide a service or a product that is exactly like someone else. And there's a lot of people that see a successful company or product and they say, well, if I do that, I can do the same thing, which isn't true. It's almost never true. So you want to do something that creates a solution to a new problem that people are having. All right. So that's it for this section. In the next one, we're going to be talking about popular marketing techniques and strategies.